Johnny Fontana, Real World NF Scorpio, back with another video.
The audience has been coddled into believing that they run the show. That's all I'm trying to say. Fans have been coddled in the last 10 years of internet culture to believe they run the show. They don't run the show. They don't
literally run the show.
Yeah, they do not run the show.
Today is going to be a response video to the interview between Huey and World of Philosophy, right?
The next issue is disintermediation. Disintermediation is a general process where people got rid of gatekeepers.
Isn't it because there was only sort of limited options in the past?
No, I think that's very valid. I mean, you had a very controlled, for a long time you had a very controlled pipeline. It was very difficult for bands to get in that pipeline.
So the problem is when you disintermediate, which is one of the sexy words of the internet evangelists, you're actually doing away with the value of the economy.
I like these videos because I think it's something that I can bring to the table in terms of contributing to the community. And it's what I bring to the table, right? Like, we all have different things that we bring to the table, as you'll come to understand throughout this video. But I think it's something that's essential, okay? And what I bring to the table is social science research versus others who are more hard science research, okay, like a world philosophy. And then you have more FE types who, like a way, he's more into engaging with peace, right? Don't fight, engaging in the understanding of why the world does things the way it does and so forth. Very, so we all have our different deliveries. But what I bring to the table is perspective. So let's go ahead and zero in on what's happening, what's going on. The main culprit for all of this is the internet. At its basic level, let me explain. In society as a whole, everything, whether, when I mean internet, I'm talking about digital, whether it be relationships, whether it be careers, whether it be your clubs, your societies, whatever it is, there were always secret spaces, which means that not everyone had access to it. Let me explain by giving you a clip. Producer, number one, go.
You see, throughout human history, we had something that between me and myself, called sacred spaces. Sacred spaces were physical spaces where only certain people were given access. And of course, one prime example of a sacred space is a book. A book was a space where only certain people were given access. And a television program, or a movie, or in earlier times, hieroglyphs and religious rituals and so on. There were always filters. There was always a gatekeeper, someone or a group or a committee or someone's who looked at your qualifications, your background, your motivation, and your emotions, your stability, or I don't know whatever the criterion or criteria may have been, and then they granted you access or denied you access to a privileged space. Internet was the first time that all space was created equal, and there was no longer privileged space. This egalitarianism of space, spatial egalitarianism, was automatically translated in people's minds to what I call malignant egalitarianism. For me, malignant egalitarianism is the counterfactual, the wrong belief or conviction that all people are created equal as far as their access to the truth and to knowledge. All people are created equal as far as access to opportunities. They should have equal access to opportunities, etc., etc. We all know the list of uncontested equalities. But it is absolutely untrue that all people are created equal either in their capacity to acquire knowledge and verify the truth, or in their willingness to do so.
Sure.
It's utterly untrue. Why did we develop this mass delusion? And we did. Why did we do that? So first of all, there is, as I said, the issue of space. Everyone has equal space. And so if I have the same space like a university, automatically it might be translated or interpreted by some people that I'm as authoritative as a university,
Right.
as erudite as a university, with the same background, the same history, and so on and so forth.
Okay? Back in the day, you can't just be and self-identify as a philosopher. No, that would be chaos. Like, you couldn't just wake up as a homo philosopher. No, you had to be properly vetted and you had to be deemed by your peers.
The next cluster is halo effect. The halo effect is simply that if you are a celebrity in one field, then automatically you are assumed to possess privileged access to information and authoritative knowledge in other totally unrelated fields. So you see actors interviewed on politics, politicians interviewed on literature, authors interviewed on science, scientists interviewed on philosophy, and so on and so forth. That means I'm not just saying that you shouldn't interview footballers or chefs. I'm also saying that you shouldn't interview a biology Nobel Prize winner on ethics. He's utterly unqualified to discuss ethics, as is Maradona.
Yeah.
Same. So the halo effect is poisonous and toxic, not only when it is applied to non-intellectuals, actually much more so when it's applied to intellectuals, because they are assumed to possess universal thinking tools, and they don't.
Right.
They don't, because of specialization. Today, there are no universal geniuses. Everyone is, very focused.
Okay? Let's listen to clip number 2 with regards to peer eval literature. Okay? Clip number 2, go.
The major problem, even in academia, major problem, there are fake academic journals, fake academic conferences, fake books, books with fake content, books with nonsense, nonsense masquerading as books. I mean, we are drowning in a swamp of trash and, excuse the expression, shit. Drowning. So the combination of disintermediation and discoverability problem is threatening our ability to make any kind of progress. Even in science it's difficult to make progress because you have millions of papers that are not vetted, not peer-reviewed, not nothing. And you don't quite know always where, so of course they are still surviving gatekeepers, but they are challenged.
Yeah.
They are challenged even, for example, by academics. So you have a massive movement of academics called the open access movement that challenges established peer-reviewed academic journals.
Really?
And we're talking about huge, I mean, I would say about half of all academics in the world belong to open access movement.
So they don't want peer review?
They want everything on the internet, free, mostly without peer review. I mean, it's a massive challenge to, of course, within open access, there are still those who support gatekeeping.
Sure.
But even that is not the same gatekeeping.
Yeah.
It's very lax gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Why? Because of publish or perish. The more you publish, the more your tenure is secure. So,
Okay, same thing with books. Clip number 3, go.
the next issue is disintermediation. Disintermediation is a general process where people got rid of gatekeepers. So the result is that last year 3.2 million books were published on Amazon Kindle alone. 3.2 million.
Wow.
Until the year 1900, the cumulative number of books published in human history was 10 million. In a single year, 3.2 million were published on Amazon Kindle.
All of them excellent, well written.
They are no gatekeepers. And because they're not gatekeepers, no editors, no readers, no proofreaders, no nothing. Because there are no gatekeepers, we are flooded. And this creates a problem known as discoverability. How do you discover the pearl among the swine? How do you separate trash from good content? How? And because we just agreed that there is no authority, there's no way to do that.
Okay? So you get the picture now. So we have a system by where people can pick up cameras and they can put their stuff on YouTube. Okay? They can identify as anything they want. Relationship, people, biological now. We can identify with everything. We want to identify as this, identify as that, this, whatever. Okay?
The cultural consequences, the economic consequences are dire. It undermines professional media and doesn't replace it with anything really. The old media world, which was controlled from above, the industrial media ecosystem, was very good at informing citizens about what was happening in the world. The democratized media of the internet doesn't do that. It creates chaos. It gives all of us a platform to express ourselves. It's great for that, and it's very exciting, and I do it as much as anyone else. But for the consumer of information, for the consumer of news, they leave this media more confused than when they started. The internet is as much a cause as a consequence of the cult of the amateur. Can't blame technology for that. It's not the internet's fault. But what the internet does, surprise, surprise, and not uncoincidentally, is provide a platform for that.
I'm going somewhere with it, but again, I have to ease into because you have to understand the basics because that's what we do. It's not about just the result, but it's the why. What's connecting with this, that connects to that associates with that, but then contributes to all of this. So now that Pandora's box is open, everyone can come in and identify and share their knowledge based on what they've learned. So I'll give you an example as relates to me. Officer, police officer, right? I watch videos and with regards to now stuff that used to be hidden is being placed online. So now people watch these videos and because they read things other places, they think they know police work now. Same thing with everything else.
This used to be the preserve of narcissists. Most people would have said, yes, I really don't know many things. Yes, please teach me. I would like to learn. What changed that is the internet. Because suddenly everyone knows everything because everyone has access to Wikipedia. That's it.
Yeah.
Now everyone is omniscient with a single click of the mouse or even with a tap of the screen. The internet encourages us to think that information is knowledge. Everything comes in huge dollops of goo and we tend to confuse this with knowledge. So if you know what happened in 1066, you have information. You don't have knowledge at all. You don't know the context. You don't know the true history, the background, the decision making, nothing. You know the information. So we confuse information with knowledge. Now this is again something that narcissists do.
Same thing with everything else. Politics, everything. So you have now people who are engaging in dialogue but don't have the information, don't really understand. They're just going off of basically what other people told them or what they think. So I'll give you an example. You have someone who is an officer, stops a person and pull the gun to that person's head because the person went out and was supposed to remain in the vehicle for officer safety. The person now is being belligerent, which is a black male. And so now the officer says, get back in your vehicle, get back in your vehicle. And the person's being belligerent, moving his thing and basically just like, don't touch me and all that stuff. So then now the officer is being aggressive. Okay, so obviously you have now dynamic by where aggression meets aggression. Then the officer now elevates the aggression and so forth in order to meet the aggressiveness of the potential suspect or the person who he's dealing with. Okay, that's police dynamic. That's what you have to understand when you're on a job, not just by watching it on TV. You have to experience these things, right? So now here's the thing now. So now the officer places the weapon, the gun barrel, in front of the person, okay, the black male, and says, get back in your vehicle. And the black male just looks at him right, with the barrel staring down, okay, at him, and then he eventually goes back. But now you have, again, the polarization now of everything, okay, whether it be politics, music, social, biology, thinkers, everyone, academia, everything is just split. You have different factions, okay, everywhere. So on one side, you have someone who's against the officer, who's saying, oh, he should be living in underneath the jail. And you have someone who's against the black person, undermining that person, saying he's ignorant and he should have listened to the officer. But no one, unlike INFJs, that's what we can do, and other intuitive types, NF feelers, sat in the middle and said, whoa, you're going after the officer. You're going after the black male. But what do you think that black male has gone through to the point of being able to turn around and be willing to die? Because if anything had escalated, that officer and that black male's life would have been taken away because of the dynamic between that black male saying, I don't give a what are you gonna do, because I'm in this situation. I've seen my fellow guys in the hood get hemmed up, so I'm gonna react a certain way because it's flight or fight, and I'm in this particular situation right now. And that officer right there has been exposed to so much crime and everything in that, so that therefore now he's insensitive. Like, he's just been like, okay, he has to deal with this all day, and he doesn't get a break, and he's got to deal with this all day. So then every time he comes in contact, it's just piling on piling on piling, and then it just gets elevated. And people will say, oh, we need more training. We'll get into that. But again, no one really thought about the mental aspect of what these people have been exposed to, and not understand when you take someone who's been exposed to that, and along with all the oppressions and all this whatever, and you take an officer who's been exposed to all of this stuff, crime after that, you put them together, what do you think is going to happen? There is no logic there. There is no, oh, you need to get back on the car. You should have known not to run away from the cop. Or the officer, you should have known, whatever, because again, but I'm going somewhere with this now. So now, you have all of these subsystems within these communities, okay? People chiming in because they think they know, they have all this knowledge, but really they don't. So, you have these communities that have been filled, okay, with people who are not related to the original cultures. Let's say hip-hop, okay? Listen to hip-hop. Give me a clip. Producer, go.
It's just that hip-hop has gotten bigger. So look, when you had hip-hop when we were younger, hip-hop pretty much affected like this group of people, right?
Right.
Add 10 years to that, it affects this group of people. Now when you're in 2014, it's affecting this group of people. So you have all of these different elements coming into hip-hop. It's not because generations are changing. It's because hip-hop is changing. Hip-hop is now encompassing more people. It's encompassing, no offense, of course, but it's encompassing more white people, more rich people, which those elements were not there when we were younger.
Okay? So now you have in hip-hop people who were not affiliated with hip-hop, white rich people. So now it creates a faction. So now more white rich people, relate to the Eminems, and they relate to those guys, I forget his name again, who sings whatever. So they cater to these folks.
But I think there are people watching us right now who don't understand why that bothers us.
Mm-hmm.
Why there's a part of this culture that inherently is based on black experience and should hold on to some of that. Look, both of us, we've gotten to have lives because of this culture. It's not like it doesn't accept everyone, it does, but the black experience is a critical part of this music. And generally history shows us that when the black experience goes away from the music dissipates and eventually becomes jazz. So
now you have MBTI. You have people, MBTI itself is very Anglo-Westernized. Okay? MBTI is very Anglo-Westernized in a sense that it's dominated by white culture.
You know, part of the, you know, there were different shadows to the Gen X generation, but one of which was, how do we include everybody? And somehow that's been warped into, how do we once again, you know, disbar those who don't fit into our, you know, our agendas. It's very strange to me.
Who do you mean when you say the nerds? Because I thought to a certain extent we were the nerds.
I thought we were the nerds,
yeah.
and then I didn't realize a bunch of people were going to come around with their laptops and claim authority. I once met some guy who was running some website that was a fan website, but super critical of the band, and I asked him what he thought of our new website, and he was like, "Well, I don't like your use of the color red." I mean, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Usually, and I say this with humility because I'm from there, it's usually middle class to upper middle class white kids who tell the world how it should be run.
Right.
And they oftentimes don't have a street feel because they haven't come from people, or they can't remember where their ancestry was from that street. And then oftentimes they turn to sources that give them the street, but they like to drop in and out, you know. So they'll embrace, let's say, rap culture or, you know, edgy DJ culture because they can put on the you know, the Birkenstocks for the weekend and pretend they're a hippie and then go back to their very safe existence. I didn't come from that safe existence. I existed in it, but I didn't come from that. So I'm very sensitive to the way particularly whites abuse kind of intellectual ideas to kind of put themselves over, to use a rest.
Okay, as opposed to me, Caribbean culture, I come from New York City, from a Caribbean family. I grew up around Latinos, Caribbean Latinos, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Jamaicans, and so forth. You don't see a lot of Jamaicans, Puerto Ricans, and Dominicans in MBTI. You don't see it. I mean, let's just be honest. That's culture. I grew up in the hood of Queens, New York. Okay, I grew up around, my first school was 85, 90% black. And then I went to an all-white school when I was in the middle school and so forth and so on. But that's what I was exposed to growing up. So when you come to MBTI, it's very Anglo-Westernized in terms of people who are on different sides, okay? So now you have one side, which is mostly, you know, educated people who are into the cognitive functions, and it doesn't matter what they look like. You take someone like Eric from famous talking with famous people, he looks like he lives in an RV, but the guy is brilliant. He's into debates and so forth. He's very educated. He's like almost like an intellect, and he can break stuff down. But you go to the hood, people are not into that stuff. Like that's not because they're not exposed to that. So he has the ability, whether it's privilege or what have you want to call it, that's fine. Then you have another section here, which is more into the self-help, you know, / let's talk about how the cognitive functions relate to us, not really projecting outward to help people, but it's more sort of like, I'm going to talk about MBTI, but how it relates to my life. And then people are now relating to that. So it's like, oh, I relate. And then, so the whole likes and dislikes and so forth, they get a higher for that. So then becomes, you know, whatever. Then you have this weird middle space that you have people like me, Yue, World Philosophy, Pukoke. Well, Pukoke is more of on this side, but she's slowly moving over here. So she's slowly moving over here, but then you realize that, again, we'll talk about that later, but she's having a hard time because she can't move over here because people are like her, like over here. And that's, again, connect the dots. If you connect the dots, why you won't see her in February is because she was moving over here and people wanted her here.
You know, it's like that thing like, no, don't go over there. You know, you don't want to go over there. Well, what are those bands supposed to do? They just keep making records to 10,000 people? The audience has to get past this idea that this is a dirty thing to help those artists. You know what I mean? That's got to end.
So we all like the Rolling Stones and the Who and the Beatles because, like, we had no other choice.
So I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree. If Cheap Trick was a new band now, they'd be huge. If the Beatles were a new band right now, they'd be huge. I'm sorry, the great bands are still going to get over. But they didn't have a world dragging on their fucking ankles to keep them in indie world. And there's a whole subculture now, that the blogging and all that, that's predicated on keeping those bands exactly where they are, because they're in that business. They're in the business of saying, no, 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 you know, you football player, don't come over here. We're in the cool club. It's just a matter of figuring out the systems. And we're at a point now where we have to call the systems for what they are. The major label system is narrowing and narrowing and narrowing and getting more bland. And the precocious indie world is getting more precocious. And this gulf is emerging, and the bands are caught, and they're supposed to choose, and they're both shit options, basically.
Like, now you're starting to see what's going on now. So, let's give you an example of the different. Now, within MBTI, you have different factions. You have, like, let's say, the ones who are in the middle, because they would come differently. You have someone who's more TI heavy, but socially. Okay, let's say TI heavy socially, but also has an understanding of the hard sciences. So like a Gabo Mate. Listen to him.
My work as a family physician, which I did for 20 years, and 7 of those years I was also medical coordinator of the palliative care unit at Vancouver Hospital, looking after terminally ill people, people dying of cancer, neurological diseases, and so on. And what I found in all those years, learned all those years, what I had not been taught in medical school, is that who gets sick and who doesn't is not accidental. But other than that, we think that these diseases are either mysterious and unexplainable misfortunes, or they are caused by people's genes. And what I found that quite on the contrary, that who got sick and who didn't wasn't random, and that there were certain identifiable patterns, certain personality traits and behavior, ways of behaving, that people unwittingly, without knowing it, unintentionally, but they brought the disease on themselves.
Okay, so now you have someone who's more TI heavy, like someone who's more into the social TI heaviness, okay, like Esther Perel. And so she can hold different concepts in her minds, okay, that people really don't understand the complexities of holding two different concepts in her minds, okay?
We used to marry and had sex for the first time, but now we marry and we stop having sex with others. The fact is that monogamy had nothing to do with love. Men relied on women's fidelity in order to know whose children these are and who gets the cows when I die. Everyone wants to know what percentage of people cheat. I've been asked that question since I arrived at this conference. But the definition of infidelity keeps on expanding. Sexting, watching porn, staying secretly active on dating apps. So because there is no universally agreed upon definition of what even constitutes an infidelity, estimates vary widely, from 26% to 75%. But on top of it, we are walking contradictions. So 95% of us will say that it is terribly wrong for our partner to lie about having an affair, but just about the same amount of us will say that that's exactly what we would do if we were having one.
So, now you have these types. Now you have someone like me. Obviously, I'm more SC driven. I'm more because I come from New York. I was a cop. I was military. So I've learned to understand human dynamics. I can do all these things. I can see people. I know, you know, when someone's lying to me and all this stuff, whatever. But at the same time, I can apply FE, but not so much to the point where I'm like, oh man, I need, you know, it's no, to the point of like, no, you need to help yourself, because again, I've been given the training and understanding of how to guide people through mentorship and so forth and so on. Because of military, that's what they do. You know, like you're supposed to look out for your troops, you know, for your subordinates and so forth and so on. So basically, that's, you become a leader. So you have all these different factions. But here's the thing. When it comes to now the dislikes and everything else, there is no entry point, because everyone can come in.
If you've watched American Idol for 10 years and you're gonna go try out for American Idol, you've already kind of figured out who you need to be to try to get on that show. So what you have is a quickly evolving set of things that you could argue has devolved. So, for example, you have creative breakthroughs like a band like Pantera or Nirvana or the Beatles and everybody goes, oh, I'll do that. And styles that are easily imitatable are more likely to become popular. So because this generation and the past couple generations have rewarded that imitation, it's a quickening to where it's like art imitates life, life imitates art, to where you can't separate anymore. And then the journalist can't separate, and the audience doesn't separate. So you actually have cultures now that are celebrating inauthenticity. Inauthenticity to the degree of, hey, you're really good at faking that. Now you take somebody like me, right, who's a freak by nature, you know what I mean? I'm just different, right? Right? You take me and you put me in a system like that, what am I supposed to do? Right? Because to be myself is to actually be counter to a system that's rewarding.
Now, if you watch YouTube videos, someone can come in as an ISTP or an ENFP. You know what? I prefer INFJ now. Oh, no. I thought I was INFP, but now I'm this.
Whatever it may be, people are unbelievably good at making pretend. Usually manifested, it's really wild shit to watch. It's insecurity that is then manifested into delusion, which leads to dramatic unhappiness.
And where you can really see it is when, because for years traditionally, counterculture attacked pop stars. Okay? So Miley Cyrus could not be a transitory figure who oscillates between Vice magazine and Rolling Stone and Life. You know what I'm saying? In every other previous generation, she would have been the target of scorn from the counterculture because they are, in essence, the counterculture. They're supposed to hate her even if she's great, which I think she's great. I really do. She's very talented. It's never been the issue for me. What shocks me is that nobody seems to have a problem with her traipsing between worlds, because every generation, like I said prior, that would have been a problem. Like, you don't get to do that. It's like, what do you mean? You don't get the free pass onto every ride. You don't get to hang out in alternative land and then turn around and dress up and go to the, you know what I mean?
So there's no one who can say, hold up. You call yourself TI heavy? All right, you're part of the INFJ community. You think you're INF? You think you're TI heavy? What do you bring to the table? All right. Can you sit here, talk to me? We have 3 people now. You are in charge of this room. That person, he has a problem with his family. You're gonna have to figure out how to help that person navigate, but be able to balance between work and that person's life. But able to control that person so that that person can be able to be productive, because if that person's not productive, then that person will be out of a job and that person won't be able to help their family. That person right there, he's a bad case. Something's going on with him. He's missing work. He's not doing what he's doing. He's not productive, but there's a reason why. You need to figure out why. Not only do you need to figure out why, but you need to look at that person and through your intuition of knowing people, figure out what do you think contributed in his past life. Do you think he was one of those individuals who had a single parent and who was always, really aggressive towards, his or her mother, right? Because they didn't have a father figure involved or whatever. Can you do these things, okay? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to actually express that, but you need to dig. You need to figure out what's going on. What's the cause of these, okay? And at the same time, you need to now figure out how to now, you have a boss who wants you to now be so heavy-handed in reprimanded and writing up all these people, and you need to be able to talk to your boss and be able to say, oh, well, listen, you know what? The reason why that person is doing that is because of this. So let me handle it at my level, and so that, because if we go too heavy, then that person may be discouraged, and it'll affect that person's work and productivity. Okay, go do it now. But I need more context. I know INFJ, whether you're TI heavy or let's say you're FE heavy, do it. Do it now. You have probation of 6 weeks. You, TI heavy, you're related to more hard sciences, you have 6 weeks. Prove to me that you are. And then come here. You're SE heavy? Oh, you say you were a police officer, you were... Okay, prove to me. Prove to me that you can actually engage with people and that you're not going to fly off the handle and that you're going to really sit there and understand where people are coming from. And that if someone comes to your scene, that you're going to be able to handle that ENTP cop who comes in and and you're going to have to now say, hey, back up. This is my scene. I don't want you to rile this person up because this person is going through some stuff right now. And it doesn't matter what that person did. I need to be able to control this situation. So you go back. If I need you, I'll call you. You're in. Oh, you were able to. You're in. You were able to. You're in. Okay? But now, what do we have now? Everyone come in. You have a YouTube channel. Everyone comes in. Everyone comes in. It doesn't matter who it is. There are no more spaces, sacred spaces, by where you can contribute to your own community and have shared experiences.
The audience has been coddled into believing that they run the show. My problem is where the public's expectations curtail my ability to move forward. And that's where I draw the line. And that's what the fan has to get through their brain, including me. We're caught in these kiddie fantasies, but the culture has evolved past the kiddie fantasy. What the Rolling Stones represent, what the Who represent, what Rush represents, and in some cases what the Smashing Pumpkins represents is more important than your individual fantasy.
It's so very powerfully said.
Let me add one more thing.
Yeah.
I read a quote today, right? Because people are bitching about the price of the Stones, $800 to go see the Stones.
Yeah.
They're playing these 4 shows.
Yeah.
They asked Keith Richards what he thought, and he said, sounds about right. And that's exactly at the core of why I love the Rolling Stones, because Keith doesn't give a shit. He truly doesn't give a shit.
Now it's like, and that's why, for example, like these other societies, right? Like men's groups and so forth and so on. Forums are a whole lot better because at least with forums, you have different sections. And yeah, you'll debate, but at least it's a little bit more productive, right? In certain areas. But it's a place where people have to have knowledge, right? Where you cannot challenge the person's knowledge, right? And people look up to these people, be like, hey, I need to know, hey, this person knows, ask this person, like when it comes to mechanics, it's like, yeah, there's a whole lot of, this and that and whatever, but at the end of the day, it's like, radiator for this particular model goes like this. The transmission, it requires this. And if you take this and you add this is what's going to happen to it. It's like A and B. So these places don't really have too many issues because it's black and white. Like a DJ. On my DJ channel, I'm good. People come in all the time and they try to challenge me, and I can say, okay, you want to challenge me? Challenge me. You see what I'm saying to you? But again, you have people now who are providing information in areas that they shouldn't be. Like listen to Sam back then again.
And now, authority is critical for truth and knowledge. Critical. It is a logical fallacy to accept truth and knowledge only by virtue of authority. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But there is no possibility to have truth and knowledge without authority.
Right.
None. Mm. You go to a doctor, he is an authority. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, he will not get treated properly. Mm-hmm. And indeed, that's one of the major battlefields.
Yeah.
Where millions and tens of millions of people are challenging doctors and telling them, this is your version and this is my version. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can treat cancer with herbs.
And crystals.
And you can treat cancer with chemotherapy. That's what you say. Mm-hmm. Maybe. I mean,
it's equally valid.
It's equally valid. So, and this is a result of...
You see what I'm saying to you? So now, everything is open. Everything is open now. So now people are going to come who are not even INFJs, but who want to subscribe to the INFJ because they think that they are, or who may be INFJ, but they're from a different faction, and because of the fact that they don't relate to what you're saying. So, you know what? I'm gonna thumbs down. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't actually gain them access. They just came because they came to party with you because they thought that you were going to be. But because they didn't like what you said, they thumbs you down. You see what I'm saying to you? Now, that's the problem with the likes, dislikes, and so forth and so on. Just like Andrew Keenan said, I'll repeat it.
So for a serious young filmmaker, these are very, very depressing times. When you leave everything to the crowd, when everything becomes democratized, where everything is determined by number of clicks, you're by definition undermining the seriousness of the artistic endeavor.
So again, it's like, if you're going to provide information, and if you're going to be the authority, then it's not about you thinking that you know better than me. You see what I'm saying to you? It's not about the crowd being the author. It's not about the crowd telling me, oh, well, yeah, I suggest you do this. Oh, I suggest you do that. Yes, you can ask me questions and say, hey, what do you think about this? Can you do a video on that? But because that's still giving that person the authority. But when you come on and you start disagreeing with that person, and you start saying, no, you're flat out, just like how Sam Vic then says here when it comes to, disagreeing with even with him, who even came up with some of the terminology for narcissism.
It's total fucking hypocrisy.
And if you think this doesn't happen, you're wrong. You can go online and find groups of mothers who argue with brain surgeons what should be the right procedure. They say the brain surgeon was wrong. He should have used this procedure, that procedure. I know of a healer in Philippines, who Brazil, who would do this. I mean, yes, brain surgeon authority is also challenged. Absolutely also challenged. I told you the story of my authority on inverted narcissism, somatic narcissism, and cerebral narcissism challenged. Why I'm saying that I'm an authority on this subject, perhaps the authority, for the simple reason that I invented these concepts. But I'm challenged daily.
I've had people come to me and say that you don't understand inverted narcissism.
Yes.
And they tell me, this is why he doesn't understand it. I'm like, he invented that. So.
Yes, I'm challenged daily on this. Some of these people know that I invented, but...
That's bizarre.
Yes, but I'm still challenged.
You see what I'm saying to you? Or people now disagree with doctors and says, yeah, I can cure myself with this and this herbs, and you're wrong. And how even mothers are disagreeing with doctors about, some of the stuff that they should be giving their children. So again, it's not just about people coming in and disliking you and why, whatever. It comes from the fact that everything has been opened now. Pandora's box is open to the point now where people are coming in who have no business coming into your... Yeah, we accept everyone. But at the end of the day, when you don't vet people, when you don't know for sure who's in, and someone who has been watching you for how long, making so many videos, and all of it decides, oh, I'm not gonna make any more INFJ video. I'm gonna make this video.
I think most people are very good at wishing there's something instead of understanding who they are. Delusion. People are so aspirationally delusional, they're not practical. They're ideological. Whatever it may be, people are unbelievably good at making pretend, usually manifested. It's really wild shit to watch. It's insecurity that is then manifested into delusion, which leads to dramatic unhappiness. I think the biggest thing, and you said it earlier, like lean into your introvertness. I just believe in that. Like, figure out who the fuck you are, get real quiet, and don't hear another word from anybody else, and do that. You will always do that best. Now, some people, like myself, are disproportionately lucky that the thing they love, they're also good at. People here are really good at something and could make a lot of money if that's what they choose to, but they don't love it. Or they could love something quite a bit, but it doesn't make as much money. And it's sad for me to watch so many people pick the first one, because for some reason, that is where society has been over the last 200 years, and putting a value prop on that. I am unbelievably passionate to use my awareness globally to continue to start changing the conversation to happiness over money. Thank you, bro. Because I think the interesting thing, I like this dude.
It affects people. You see what I'm saying to you? Like, it affects the way that things happen. So I'm not saying that he doesn't have the right to do that, but it does have an effect. Because then now, because of the internet, people will look at that and be like, oh, well, because he did it, now I can do it. Or I'm going to go on and do something different. And because I'm becoming overwhelmed, so I'm going to go here. Because I can't deal with this, because again, it's because you have a community of people who may not belong. And for the INFJs, especially us, it affects us, especially when we have people who, and that's why it affected Prokoki, because she's doing interviews and people were like moving away from the interviews, and she's like, I don't understand what's going on. Why is this? I have 2,000 people who subscribe, but yet my viewership is going down, and this, that, and the third, whatever. Again, because you didn't build your crowd.
Okay, let's say you have a core audience of 100,000 people. If those 100,000 people are sophisticated enough to understand what they need to do to get their band to mean something on a bigger level, which will change the world, which will change the culture, which will subvert the shit they don't like and get that stuff out of the way, they'll understand how to go into that right business. It's going to be digital currency, and what I mean by that is, retweets and stuff like that. So the audience has to become invested in a way that they understand that they vote. You know what I mean? They want their bands, their artists to win. But if you're in a subculture that doesn't want those bands to win, those bands are ultimately going to be defeated by the audience that, it's like that thing like, no, don't go over there. You don't want to go over there. Well, what are those bands supposed to do? They just keep making records to 10,000 people?
It's not an authentic crowd. It's people can come and go as they please. You see what I'm saying to you? Like, they're not paying for it. It's free.
No one's paying for this content anymore. Partly because a lot of people on the internet are pirating it. Partly because of this ethos of amateurism, this cult of the amateur now that exists culturally. It means that professional artists are struggling to make a living. They're lost in the chaos.
You see what I'm saying to you? So if it's free, they can do as they please with it. You see what I'm saying to you? Like, you're just a toy in their world. Like, I'm gonna unsubscribe because I don't like your content anymore. You see what I'm saying to you? Whereas, if you're initiated into the club, if you are part of this society, which means that you paid your dues. Like, you don't become a DJ just because you say, oh, I'm a DJ. You don't say I'm an INFJ just because you call yourself an INFJ. To be an INFJ, you need, if you're INFJ TI heavy, FE heavy, SE heavy, whatever, then guess what? You need to prove, you need to pay your dues. It's not just coming on and saying, oh, well, if you're TI heavy, then I want to see cognitive functions, like, really put it on. If you're FE heavy, I want you to really explain to me about meditation and really how to really engage with the world and how to improve yourself, right? But not from a self-help weird space because you're pandering to your audience, but really, how do you connect that to living a real productive life? And give me real world examples, just like UA does. Philosophy, just like World of Philosophy does, whatever, going in and out, like I do with the SC. Like, hey, this is what you do at a party. This is what you do here. Boom, 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 whatever. You need to pay your dues, right? Paris Hilton becomes a DJ. She's not a DJ because she knows somebody, whatever. You're not a DJ. So then now you leave everything to the crowd. You leave everything to viewerships. Like, then it undermines the whole idea of authority as a creative artist. Because making YouTube and so forth and providing guidance or whatever, it's creative art in its own self.
You can't just pick up a camcorder and suddenly say, oh, I can make a movie. You become a master of your art, whether it's in writing or in filmmaking or in music making, requires intense practice. It's not something that can be achieved simply through technology. So it's great that the internet allows filmmakers to put their content on and distribute it around the world. But that doesn't mean that the content by definition has value. Mainly garbage. When you look at the most popular stuff on YouTube, it's 30-second videos of farting dogs or of silly cats. If you think that's valuable, then you're a Philistine. What would a young Fassbender, a young Herzog, a young Hitchcock, a young Scorsese think? They wouldn't make it in this business. Slap up their early stuff on Facebook, on YouTube, it would get lost. It would get lost in the ocean of garbage.
So yes, that's what it is. The reason why, and that's why I don't read my comments. I don't, because of the fact that I haven't vetted you. And the thing is, we miss the paradox. This is the last thing I'll say. Right? We're very private people. But yet we think that anyone's going to come into our lives and act accordingly. No, that's why I don't. Unless I've spoken to you directly, unless you've done something for me, or if I have had an interview with you, and even then, I'll keep you at a distance. But until then, if I haven't had any contact with you, you are just another number. You mean nothing to me. Because you can come and subscribe as you please. So, what loyalty do you have to me or to my delivery? You don't. Johnny Fontana, Real World NF Scorpio. We out.